Y'all, I'm going to be real this morning. This devotion has taken me a really long time to do. And it's taken me a really long time to do because I wanted to have a moment of emotional honesty, and I don't really know how to do that in front of a camera. But I wanted to acknowledge the fact that this situation really stinks and it's really hard. And I'm really grateful that our devotions have been focused on positivity, but I think that failing to acknowledge the reality of the fact that this is a struggle is not serving you. And it's a lie for me. I have felt very grateful and very hopeful and very blessed in all of this. But I've also felt really anxious and really scared and really sad and really angry in this season of pandemic as well. And it's been a real comfort to me that God created all of those emotions and that all of those emotions are acceptable to bring before God in prayer. I feel like so often as Christians we're told that we're supposed to be good and we're supposed to be nice and that there isn't any room for authenticity in our prayer lives, as though God doesn't know when we're being authentic or not, because God doesn't approve of anger. And that's just not true. And one of the things that's been most difficult for me in managing my anger through this period is that I don't have anything to direct it at. I don't have anger at a group of people or at an institution or at an individual, right? I'm angry at a disease. What is that? How do you direct your anger at a disease? And so praying the Psalms has become really, really important to me as a prayer practice, because the Psalms are not only the largest book in the Bible, they also have room for the multitude of human emotions, right? They not only include psalms of praise, but also a remarkable amount of lament and cursing. There are at least 2 psalms in the Psalter that are just filled with rage. And so I wanted to talk about those today. I felt really empowered when I was in seminary by this book, which is by an Old Testament scholar out of Duke Divinity School called Ellen Davis. And the book is called Getting Involved with God. And in the first 3 chapters, Ellen really deals with the Psalms and the Psalter. And this is what she has to say about the cursing Psalms. We should know that these Psalms are available and even appropriate for Christian prayer, and that sometimes they are necessary. You've not heard these Psalms in church. Sunday lectionaries omit Psalms like this altogether, or they include them in only highly edited forms. But by clapping our hand over the psalmist's mouth in that way, we lose something the Bible intends us to have. By refusing to listen to that anger, or even take it on our lips, we lose an opportunity to bring our own anger into the context of our relationship with God. The cursing Psalms are, in fact, a crucial resource for our spiritual growth, indispensable if we are to come before God with rigorous honesty. And she then goes on to tell a marvelous story about how she's utilized these Psalms. In seminary, she had an incident where she got betrayed by a friend and was really struggling with it. And one of her professors gave her Psalm 109 and Psalm 55 and told her to go into the chapel at night and to yell them for a week, and then to report back to him on how she felt after doing that for a week as a spiritual practice. Just yelling these Psalms that were filled with rage and real horrible hate speech. If you read them, they are nasty Psalms. They're mean. And she did it. And after about the 3rd or 4th night, she started to realize that her qualms weren't really that big of a deal, but she had felt really empowered by the language. And after about 5 days, she started to realize that God had been present with her in that anger, and that these Psalms had empowered her to give language to something she didn't have language for. And by the 7th day, she was in a place where she was moving towards healing. Yelling the Psalms had helped her to realize the core of what was going on in this relationship that had led to betrayal, and it helped her to name it and to move on and to achieve wholeness and flourishing again. And I wonder what our spiritual lives would look like if we, instead of trying to suppress the emotions we've determined are bad, we just lived into them and we acknowledged them, not as good or as bad, but as authentic to where we are in that moment. And if we breathed through them and then moved on, where we could talk about them with our spouses or our loved ones, where we could talk about them with God, I think that would be really interesting for Christians to experience. And I hope that this week you'll look through the Psalter and that maybe you'll give voice to some of the feelings that are written so beautifully there. Particularly, again, if you're struggling with anger like I am, Psalm 109 and Psalm 55. And I hope that in screaming those Psalms, in crying through those Psalms, in laughing through those Psalms, that you'll emerge on the other side after a day or 3 days or a week of using them as a spiritual practice, feeling like you're on the path to healing and wholeness. Even if these stay-at-home orders keep getting extended, even if this pandemic keeps raging on, I hope the Psalms make you feel less alone and that they remind you that you're beloved children of God and that I love you no matter what your emotional state is. And I love being there for you, Alamance, Presbyterian Church. And I love the way that you've been there for me. So keep being there for one another. Keep feeling your feelings. Know that you're loved. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.